brand new week and almost the end of February. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. I'm super excited to be here again to do what we love to do and help you make sense of what's happening in the polity with loads of fun. Guy and lady. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, what a weekend it was. A long one. And how are you holding up, by the way? That you are here is evidence of your strength. You know what they say, that you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option that you've got. So keep holding on. I will soon turn a corner. I am Bukola Koka. Welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television.
So it's Monday, February the 26th, 2024. And let me just say this, Bukola is looking great. So let me borrow from that and just...
Thank you, Kayode.
I mean, she does that daily basis, but today I just had people saying, Bukola, you're looking great, you're smashing. So this is my desire for you today, that your day will be nothing but great. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
As beautiful as Bukola's dress, by the way. I wanted to ask a question before we get to what we're doing today. So if you see a very expensive car driving recklessly beside you and just zooms past, what are the options that come to your mind? Would you think that it's the owner of the car driving that car? Or somebody who didn't buy the car, maybe a driver or a young person? Or is it a woman or a guy? What are the biases that will come to your mind? Because you'll be guided by biases, trust me.
Very interesting question. I didn't see that coming. So a couple of things will go through my mind. If I'm in Lagos, if I'm in Abuja, I'm going to move far away from that vehicle.
Why?
I know, you don't want to play with it. I mean, driving in Abuja is a bit tricky, really, because you're not sure who's behind the wheels and if the person's under the influence and the rest. But in Lagos, you know, Lagos people, they find a way to drive. They're calculated in their rough driving, if I could say that. Lagos people are kind of like that. So most times you tend to think, this person doesn't have a lot of stakes in this vehicle. That's why the person is driving that way. But then you find a lot of people rushing to work, trying to beat traffic. So it's neither here nor there. What I'll just do most times is move away. In Abuja, I'll move like 10 meters. In Lagos, only 5 meters.
What will you do?
Well, two things for me. I'll suspect that it's probably not the owner, because wealthy people who drive their own wealthy cars are usually not in a hurry. You know, they have arrived and, you know, they just go slowly. That's one thing about wealthy people. So it could just be a driver, and it could just be someone whose tag is, "This world is not my own." So I'll just avoid the person and slow down and let the person carry their wahala go, and just, you know, be sane on the road.
I like to chat about driving and roads and all of that in Lagos, because Lagos is a different kettle of fish. Driving in Lagos it's a skill set. In fact, I don't even know how to put it, but that's not all we have for you. That's not exactly what we have for you. Now, what exactly...
Jeffrey, what went through your mind? Because I know it happened today. No, it happened over the weekend.
Okay, so what went through your mind, Jeffrey?
It could be all of the ranges I explained. It could be anything, you know, but sometimes I feel that if you're driving a very expensive car and you buy that car, and maybe you're a middle class or just a rich person, you'll be a bit cautious, you understand? So maybe a driver who doesn't know the value, as Kayode say, of what is driving, because if you see how much some of those lights cost, or how much maybe headlight or side mirror costs, you can buy some vehicles. Yeah. So if you drive that kind of car, you have to be a bit careful. If you drive it recklessly, maybe my suspicion is correct, or I may be wrong. Who knows? So what do you think?
Should we borrow this analogy and speak to our managers of economy of government? Nigeria is an expensive vehicle, please. Forget the facts. So please drive with care, with wisdom.
With caution.
Yes, and ensure that we get to this destination safe and well taken care of.
All right, so what do we have?
Thank you.
Yes, I like that part. So what do we have for you on the program today? The conversation on possible solution to the myriads of Nigeria's challenges is far from over, with the cost of living still on the rise, while the government continues to appeal for patience and understanding. What options are left for citizens like you and I, who are constantly at the receiving end? The discussion continues today on the show. Speaking of which, can there be peace actually between landlords and tenants who are always at loggerheads over sundry issues, from water to damages to to the pumping machine? Well, as you know, there are
three sides to a story, actually. And what's your own story? Your side, my side, and the truth. Today on the show, the agency in charge of mediation over landlord-tenant disputes joins us. It's a conversation you can't afford to miss. We'll be representing you.
You can't just imagine how long we have planned for this conversation because it concerns you and I. But that's not all. They say that the best way to tell a story is to follow a character, and that's exactly what movie making is all about. On the show today, we'll unmask a character in one of Nigeria's finest epics as he walks us through the path of Anikulapo and the intrigues of character interpretation. You may need a writing material for this one.
Absolutely. So, plus, share your thoughts with us on CTV Morning Brief or on WhatsApp. The number will be coming on your screen pretty soon. And that's how we can amplify your voice. So, if yes, that's permit me to call it a magic number that you can't call, but you can only send messages and your videos as soon as we verify. Remember that interesting conversation about landlords and tenants. So if you're a landlord, we're expecting your message. If you're a tenant, I know we are expecting loads of your message. So bring it on. We'll share your thoughts and perspective on the show at that particular segment as well as other things that are happening across Nigeria and around the world on what's trending around, the social media, especially on X. So post it, CTV Morning Brief, and we'll get talking. The Morning Brief starts right now. Morning, the president appears to be rallying expertise as the economy continues to struggle and even defy logic. President Bola Tinubu has now set up a tripartite economic advisory committee comprising representatives from the federal and state governments, including organized private sector. The inauguration of the advisory team took place during a meeting of stakeholders at the State House in Abuja. Let's take a listen to the president.
We are doing right and what we are doing wrong. To bring life back to the economy. Like I said many times, the people of this country are only the people we have to please. And we are very much concerned, from the students to mothers, fathers, the farmers, the traders, and realizing that every one of us, we have to fetch water from the same well. We are looking for additional efforts that might help the downtrodden Nigerians, and we will provide that hope and the assurance that the economic recovery is on its way. We are not saying that we have all the answers, but we will not be blamed for not to try. We assure Nigerians that we will do our best to get our Marshall Plan in place and fashion out the best economic future for this country.
President of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. And now to the alarm raised by the Nigerian Labour Congress, alleging that the government intends to disrupt a proposed two-day nationwide protest over economic hardship beginning from tomorrow, February 27, barring any last-minute changes. The NLC identifies a civil society group known as the Nigeria Civil Society Forum as the proxy deployed by to allegedly unleash violence on demonstrators. A statement by its president, Mr. Joe Ajaero, says, as citizens, we have a fundamental right to a peaceful protest, and history bears us witness that our protests are always peaceful except in instances of state-engineered violence. The NLC therefore warns that any attack on workers under whatever guise will result to immediate strike action and calls on the international community to protect the right of workers to protest. Now, the rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, has asked the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, to provide security for the workers during a two-day nationwide protest. The union had on February 16 announced the protest will hold on Tuesday and Wednesday, which is tomorrow and the next, to persuade the federal government to intervene in the current economic challenges experienced by citizens and also fulfill that 2023 agreement over welfare issues or be prepared for an indefinite strike. Citing Section 83, subsection 4 of the Police Establishment Act, the senior lawyer, in a letter to Mr. Fagbemi, says the AGF is compelled by law to ensure that the safety of demonstrators are assured, while appealing to the organized labor to conduct themselves quite peacefully. And now to the appeal by the interim administrator of the Presidential Advisory Amnesty Program, to state and local government to serve their citizens and ensure they are empowered adequately. Retired Major General Barry Ndiomo, who was speaking during an exclusive interview with Channels Television, says the state of the Niger Delta, for instance, would have been better if the various states as well as local government were more involved in the service and development of their citizens.
One of the reasons why we have a lot of these pockets of crisis across Nigeria is because of the failure of government at the state and local government levels. Children who have not been afforded the opportunity of being educated, unemployment, of course it leads to unemployment, and even youth unemployability. So it's a twin thing. If you are not educating them, then please provide them with the skills so they do not become useless to society. And I think these things are absent in some of these states. The Presidential Amnesty Program was and is an ad hoc arrangement. It should not become a permanent institution in our society.
Now you can catch the full conversation with General Ndiomo. Watch Newsnight tonight by 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Now, it was a sad Sunday for the Minister of State for the FCT after fire engulfed our private residence in the nation's capital. Nothing was said to have been salvaged from the Justice Roslyn Ukeji Close residence of Mrs. Mairiga Mahmood, as emergency services were reported not to have responded promptly. According to reports, the media aide to the minister confirmed the incident but could not disclose the cause of the fire outbreak as it is still being investigated. Let's move on now. The Director General of the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, says front-end partners with high infraction rates will not be onboarded again as the Commission lifts the suspension order placed on some of them. She also adds that the payment for service delivery due to the EPs or FEPs is currently ongoing and therefore expects more Nigerians to be enrolled for the NIM.
One of the things that we factored into place was for us to check in the back end to obviously validate and verify that the total number of names they claim they have generated is what we're actually going to pay them, which is the normal process.
Let's now talk business. The high exchange rate for cargo clearance by the Customs Service can force importers to divert their cargo to neighboring countries and predisposes goods to smuggling. That warning is actually coming from the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, that's CPPE, who are advising the central bank to address the surge by over 40% in the last 2 months. The founder of the CPPE, Mr. Muda Yusuf, who in a statement commended the Apex Bank decision to allow the use of exchange rates specified in the import documentation, that's from M, from the beginning of the import process, also seeks immediate attention to address cargo clearance costs in line with government's aim to reduce hardship among citizens. Heading outside our shows now to some international story. War can be quite costly. It's perhaps why the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, says 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed during the Russia's full-scale invasion, with many injured. It is not common for Ukrainian officials to make casualty figures public, but this comes after the defense minister said half of all Western aid for Ukraine has been delayed, costing lives and territory. President Zelensky says he was providing an updated death toll in response to inflated figures that Russia claims the other time. Let's now head to the world of sports. Another silverware now sits in the trophy cabinet for the Reds at Anfield after Virgil van Dijk's header at time gave Liverpool a remarkable Carabao Cup final win over Chelsea at Wembley. Even with the compliments of some of its top stars, or without it, I should say, Liverpool got a 10th triumph in the competition. Jurgen Klopp, who is on the verge of saying goodbye to Anfield, has achieved the first part of what people consider a potential quadruple, but it was a sad blow for Chelsea and manager Mauricio Pochettino. Well, those are the stories we've been tracking for you at the weekend, as well as the outlook for today. Bukola joins me to tell us exactly what you've been talking about across social media, and she hands me my technology, I like to call it.
Yes,
Bukola.
Indeed, Jeffrey. So many things that Nigerians are talking about, and it seems as if that conversation on the Naira is not going away anytime soon.
Exactly.
And for good reason, because it is on the hinges of the Naira that so many other things revolve. You know, price of commodities, which for example, by the way, over the weekend, the National Economic Council insisted that the price of commodities must not be determined by the Naira. But that's simplistic, if you ask me, because the price of fuel has gone up slightly again, and I imagine that is going to impact upon inflation figures for January when it is released, or February when it is released again next month. So
exactly.
Nigerians are talking about the Naira.
There's a lot that Nigerians are talking about. That's why, for now, what I see to be happening is that everybody's trying to look for solution, whether you are in party A or party B. Let's just survive first, then we can start those internal wranglings and fights that we're used to. Right now, the economy is not smiling. It's defying logic. The president yesterday has put together a team. The former president also put together an economic advisory team led by Justice Professor Salami, and people like Bismarck Riwani were in that team. Now this president has also done the same, because solution is what everybody's looking for. So if you have answers to the challenges of our economy, as the president has said, maybe this is the time to come forward, because we need to get out of this. This is a clear description of a quagmire, because they are putting every model they can, but let's see how it plays out at the end of the day. But that's not all people are talking about. They're also talking about ECOWAS making a U-turn. Okay, ECOWAS is making
a very sharp U-turn, by the way.
Yes, I did say there's something called hard rejection, soft rejection, hard acceptance, soft acceptance. They started with hard rejection. We don't accept this unconstitutional takeover of government. You must hand over. And now they're beginning to tilt towards maybe hard acceptance. Okay, let's have a transition period. I was shocked. I was surprised when the commission chairman said, former president of Niger Republic, Bazoum, because they never referred to him as former president. So you can see international diplomacy is a different kettle of fish. So ECOWAS is beginning to come around the corner to realize that this force ain't going to work, according to Americans.
But Jeffrey, the big question is this a compromise on the commitment of the regional body to democratic principles and ideals? Because there is no, soft peddling on the military regimes in this country. Not from the last time that we checked. It's
a complex conversation, and there are fine lines to it, because you have to look at national sovereignty and all of the elements. So, but let's find out what the people are saying. Is sure for you, that's the way the person calls, or the name of the person. Well, this is a welcome development, as the aim of ECOWAS is actually for the welfare of the West African province. ECOWAS should look for a reason for coup and not the coup itself. There's no smoke without fire. So that's from Ishok for you, talking about ECOWAS lifting sanction.
We hope that there must be honest conversations in that regard when we're talking about the reason for the coups. Well, Femi Olufumilade says, better late than never. Suspending the sanctions on the 3 ECOWAS members is in our national interest as a country. Trade and security relations between us and them can now resume, and ECOWAS is saved. ECOWAS leadership just listened to the plea of a founding father, General Gowon.
This K7 Crypto says that's the best way to go about this. We as Africans must first safeguard our own survival. Whatever differences we have, we should solve amicably. The focus should be on the Congo now, and how we can place the issue of self-preservation for Africa and Africans at the forefront. Bukola.
Yeah, Northern Mayor says a step forward and a key determinant of the unity of the continent as a whole. Again, diplomatic negotiations to curtail further reoccurrences of such on the continent.
Suraj says, to God be the glory. I think ECOWAS has done well considering the unity of West Africa.
And Mohammed Aminu Aliyu says, we should have learned that sanctions don't work. I bet he means. Same mistakes US and EU have made several times.
Now, this is coming from Kishel Godwin. He says, what they would have done since was dialogue. A lot of things wouldn't have gone this bad, but thank God for the good news.
Well, Kenny David says it's necessary to lift the sanctions just as trade between member states can return and economic development can improve.
And Los Blancos says, laugh out loud, LOL, like they had any choice. Those countries had already moved on, and in doing so, they showed that they could do better without association.
Okay.
Well, you know, when it comes to, there's something called natural distribution, so that there could be interdependence, which is why this cohesion among regions is quite important. Sometimes we must be able to define who really is our enemy, because sometimes we throw our enemy status on different people. We're excited that there's a reconsideration, but that doesn't mean that the region accepts coup. But at the end of the day,
I wonder if this will be a precursor to the decision by the 3 member states to return to ECOWAS, following the letter they wrote that they were withdrawing from the regional body.
Well, ECOWAS has acknowledged it. Let's see their response. Now, let's move on to another issue. The Naira made some gains at the weekend, and a lot of people are excited. This is coming from Iliasu Buhari. Says, a very good news of the appreciation of the Naira. I hope and pray that the Naira sustains the gains. I commend those in the forefront making the effort that is yielding result. Please sustain the push. Nigeria should win.
And this one, very brief one from Nkem Chukuneta, says, Naira gaining strength for a day or two won't drive down prices. You know, and if the Naira gains strength, the question is by how much? By 3 Naira? By 5 Naira? You know where we're coming from. In May 2023, between 450 Naira to 500 Naira. But where are we now? Somewhere around 1,000, between 1,400 and 1,500 Naira.
It almost got to 2,000 at some point. That tweet is not, the person says the gain has to be sustained for weeks and months, and then market forces will surely drive prices down. Let's go to Max Vecher. Says, as the Naira is gaining strength against the dollar, you now see that the Naira wasn't the only problem, and the reason why the common Nigerian is finding it difficult to feed. Nigerians and their, I won't use that word, have always been a big part of the problem, because the Naira will gain strength, but cost of goods and services remain the same while they keep blaming dollars.
Now, Eric TC24 says, first of all, Naira hasn't exactly gained that much. We sometimes forget where we're coming from, echoing my sentiments exactly. If the Naira maintains this gain, then in weeks, the price will start reflecting as did with the raise. For market price to go back to what it was last year, Naira has to be selling at 600 Naira or less to the dollar.
Okay, baby steps perhaps is what people are celebrating. Black analyst says it takes time for the exchange rate to reflect on products when Naira gains value. And
the Prince says, I'm just hoping if the Naira gains stability and stays for some time, things should go back to normal price accordingly, and they will always blame their selfishness on old stock, last.
Osmanov says Naira is gradually gaining strength. This should continue while the CBN It stiffens the policy, most especially the banks and the BDCs. Banning of usage of dollar in the country is most appropriate way Naira could gain more strength. Let's keep it up, okay? I don't know.
Well, this is another subject, related subject that Nigerians are talking about. I guess this follows a news reported that petrol subsidy was costing government 400 billion naira monthly.
Yes. Well,
starting with Cashel Godwin, who says, so now one can say government is spending 400 billion naira monthly, right? Well, following the undisclosed report that subsidy is now continuing. Okay, so now what impact does this have on the citizens? Good question.
Good question. Sure Plug says, since subsidy has now been removed, what industry have they built with those money to alleviate the joblessness and unnecessary youth idleness? How can you equate job availability and job opportunities? The government has actually not come out to agree that they have removed subsidy, but we saw the IMF report saying
they have returned subsidy.
They have returned subsidy, rather. But we saw the IMF report say it's being capped. So the government has actually not come out. I don't want to use the word come clean. They've not come out to say we have. But when the expert analyze all the elements of cost and how much it should have cost you to buy your PMS, for instance, I think they say it's indicative that subsidy has been restored some way or some form. But the government continues to give us that data of fact, how much we are gaining and how much is being distributed or allocated to state and distributed to state. So,
but Jeffrey, you know, in addition to that, there's still a very big need for more transparency in that sector, particularly for the NNPCL and the federal government to explain why there's a crawling increase in the pump price of petrol. Yeah. You know, especially from the last time that there was an official increase.
If something goes from 615 or 610 to 650, that's not crawling. In economics, it's significant.
Yes, it's significant. So why are we experiencing this?
So,
there needs to be an explanation.
This is coming from Rabiu Garba. Since it was costing the government such huge amount from May to date, the total number of such amounts wasn't introduced to this economic crisis. There's no reason the cost that cost Nigerians to suffer this way. We're above that. We're too much for. Okay, I'm trying to say we're above that. We're too much for that.
Yeah. How much are you buying petrol, by the way? Maybe you should post at us on X and let's know from which part of the country you're writing from and how much you're buying petrol per liter. This one is from Franco World, and he says, why should subsidy costing government 400 billion naira monthly? Well, why should subsidy cost? We have the crude. Why not reach agreement to pay with crude? For example, supply 100% barrels to refinery and we receive 70% to 80% of the refined products. Then NNPC with the government controls the market price. Be honest.
Sometimes not as simplistic. I guess that's what will be the answer sometimes. Tony says, show us evidence of savings made from subsidy removal. What project has been executed or ongoing? When will the promised CNG buses arrive the country? We have suffered enough to be patient. I agree. Nigerians have been through the receiving end. Different administration come with different terminology. This administration is saying, calm down, be patient, things are going to work. Remember, in administration, there was austerity measure. The people were doing austerity, but the government wasn't doing austerity. And now we've seen it again. That's why the people are shouting. Simple things the people are asking. For instance, when they were shouting, why are you buying big cars for the National Assembly? The people expect you not to buy those big cars. That's how they will feel that you're listening. From the presidency to the National Assembly, there are certain baby steps they want to see in terms of fiscal discipline that they want to believe that you're really serious about changing their lives. Okay.
Speaking of CNG, the Senate is investigating the disbursement of 100 billion naira to the private sector, members of the private sector who are partnering with government, you know, for the release of, for the implementation of the CNG initiative. So, but we are asking the Senate to wrap up on that very quickly. Nigerians are running out of patience. This one is from Steve Loving, and he says, FG should be able to tell Nigerians that subsidy removal will be used for project A, B, C, which will impact the lives of Nigerians positively.
And JP says, even after its removal, The economy is still worse than it was when we still have it, or when we still had it. My question remains, what happens to the 400 billion naira saved monthly? They shared it amongst the tiers of government. I have a straight answer. So what happened is, we made as much as 1.9, 1.7. But if you put all of that in money into the economy, we're already dealing with inflation. So you don't want too much money supply in the system, and it goes crazier. So what they did was hold back a few of the billions, maybe 900 billion, 700 billion, and share 1 trillion or 1 point something trillion among the states. So it is not just the federal government that should answer this question. Your local
governors should answer the questions.
In fact, I wish I have time. You can go to budget and all of that, find out how much comes to your local government every month. You will be shocked. Well, that's what we've been tracking for you on X. Don't forget, WhatsApp is also a place you can share your thoughts and views. We will be reading it later on the show. But for now, we'll switch gears to our first conversation for the day. Join us again.
We'll be right back.
I promise all the good people of Edo State, in Edo State, in Nigeria, in the diaspora, that I will work tirelessly for our states. I will assemble a group of young men, women, older, middle-aged, the best hands possible to move our state to the next level. And I promise you all that I will give you my all.
I came out to find out that it was actually the delegates, and I can recognize some of the faces, especially those from once as well, big politics together. And they are telling me that they went to do their accreditation, and they refused them accreditation, and they thought it was a joke. But consistently, almost all of them were refused accreditation, and they came to tell me what has happened. And for me, I've assured them I will take their grievances to the appropriate authority. Those are the delegates. Those are the delegates that emerged in the last adult delegate election, and also the national delegate election. Those are the delegates, and they have their results, and I'm aware of it. We have challenged the process of these elections, and you can increasingly see that our challenge the process of the election is becoming too visible. How will you want to disenfranchise authentic delegates and replace them with people that do not exist?
Welcome back. Let's now talk about the myriads of challenges we're facing as a country. We're going to deal with the economic and security issues, but we may have to start from internal democracy within parties. We've seen what's happening in Edo State. The primaries are over for all of the political parties getting set for September governorship election. But for what people consider the lead political parties, it's not been a smooth ride. The APC started off with having 3 candidates, Monday Okpebolo, Dennis Idahosa, and then Anemero Dekeri. Eventually, they did another one after it was declared inconclusive, and Okpebolo was declared winner, and Idahosa as well as Dekeri are protesting. Let's come to the PDP. The PDP also did theirs, and Mr. Asue Godalo emerged as the winner of the exercise at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium. But the deputy governor also had a parallel governorship primary, and he emerged as the winner, and he's also laying claim to the party's ticket. The Labour Party, we thought, maybe different, but it didn't work out well as they expected. Olumide Akpata was declared winner, but another gentleman within the Apapa faction has also been declared winner as Samota Anderson. So, what is going on with internal democracy within parties? That's why we're being joined by the PDP National Publicity Secretary, joining us from Abuja studio, Mr. Debo Ologunagba. Mr. Ologunagba, thank you so much for coming to the program.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
When I come to politicians and they are smiling after remarks or videos, I want to ask, why are you smiling? Maybe that's a natural way to start.
Yeah, you need to smile because you're talking to people, you're not talking to machines. So you need to smile because I see you, you're all looking good, so I should smile to you. So good morning, all of you.
I would like to take that as the right answer. But let's move on now. Within your party, we're seeing two candidates emerge. I don't know what the response will be. The exercise was conducted and Aswe Godalo emerged winner. But there has been issues even before that particular exercise by 9 other aspirants, which has now culminated in the party having 2 people claiming the right to the tickets of the party. What's the reaction of the National Working Committee?
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you this morning. I think we should put on the premise. Clearly, we do not have 2 candidates. We don't have parallel candidates. We didn't have parallel primaries. But I need to put it in perspective so that we can understand the processes of primary elections. Under the guidelines, the Electoral Act, our internal guidelines, and the Constitution, the body that has the power and the authority to conduct primary election and congresses for political parties is the National Working Committee of the party. In our case, the National Working Committee of the PDP. In course of this process, we started out to issue our schedules and timelines for each of the activities relating to the primary election. And the beginning was to have the 3 ad hoc delegates. In doing this, the party issued details. In the details that we issued, among that was the venue and the processes and procedure for conducting the delegate election to elect 3 ad hoc for the 192 wards in Edo State. Before then, we issued a statement which was published to identify the location and the venue. And what we were guided adequately so in accordance with the procedures and the law by advertising that the delegate elections for the election of the 3 ad hoc delegates would be conducted and the venue accredited and identified by INEC. That was in the public domain. It was published in 2 national dailies. On the day set aside and scheduled for that process, party members went to those designated locations as published, and the election were conducted. And 3 other delegates emerged for each of those local government, except for 1, which was again redone. I think 2 local governments in the northern part of the state. Thereafter, in accordance with the processes that is established in our party, when people have grievances and complain against the process, there's an appeal panel. Petitions were sent to the appeal panel, they were considered, and the appeal, in its wisdom, after considering all the issues, sent a report approving of that process as having been substantially in compliance with the guidelines, with the laws, and with the rules. In line with the processes that is embedded in this system, the party, the NWC, sat to consider the appeal panel report, and its wisdom approved that process. And thereafter, we proceeded to the primary. Again, for transparency, for clarity, and for fairness, the venue, the date, the time for the primary election, and the list of delegates, as well as the list of the electoral committee of the party, headed by the governor of Zamfara State and co-chaired by the governor of Delta State, with Senator James Manager as secretary. The committee comprised of notable Nigerians, senior advocates, great politicians, and they came in, they conducted the primaries. The whole process was transmitted live, and so from that process, Asue Ighodalo emerged.
Right.
And that is where we are.
Well,
so that is the in line with the laws.
Right.
That is the correct process.
Right.
And that is the legal process in line with the Constitution, in line with the Electoral Act, in line with our processes, in line with our guidelines.
If I can come in now.
We do not have two congresses.
So what does that make the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu? Mr. Ologunagba.
Sorry?
I said, so what does that make the Deputy Governor, Mr. Philip Shaibu?
What do I make of that?
What does that make him? If you say that Mr. Asue Ighodalo is the rightful candidate of the party, what does that make the Deputy Governor, who's also laying claim to this?
No, again, you see, I am not going to be commenting on what I make about the claim. What I have just simply set out is to show the process, the procedure, in line with the laws, in line with our guidelines, and the steps we have taken as a party. One, to ensure that there's a fair and free process, to ensure that there's a clarity, and the fact that every aspirant has the opportunity, because what we did, our own job is to make sure that the rules are clear and that every aspirant have the opportunity.
I understand, Mr. Ologunagba. I just want to lay the cards bare.
And so we publish that.
Right, pardon me. I just want to lay the cards bare, really, so we are clear. So you said Mr. Asue Ighodalo is a candidate. Mr. Philip Shaibu, the Deputy Governor, and you saw what he said there after the process was conducted. For people who are watching and they're still confused, particularly young Nigerians who I imagine that the PDP is trying to encourage to get into governance, to participate actively, what would you tell them about what is playing out? What does that make Mr. Philip Shaibu? Let's speak to the issues clearly. Is he the candidate or not?
No, the issues are clear, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle, there's only one issue that is clear, and I've clarified that, Kyle, is the fact that there's a process. And when there's a process, and they are clear, and you have followed that, the outcome of that becomes very clear.
But you're quiet
so
about the Deputy Governor, is what I'm saying. And a lot of people want you to speak to that. Would you just allow him carry on as will I say parallel candidate? You know, all of these terms are going across parallel candidates, the second candidate of the party. Would you allow that go on, is what I'm asking?
No, exactly. That is not going to happen with us. That is why, like I always reference, the PDP has an internal resolution mechanism that is very robust. And I can tell you this. You know, elections are it's an emotive thing, and people can feel in a particular way, either rightly or wrongly, but the processes should be followed. For us, we know we have gotten to the next stage of getting our party members together, and that is the next stage. But the question to ask is this: have you followed the due process? If you have, if someone has emerged through that process, that we as NWC have tried as much as possible to make very clear. From all I have said in terms of how we proceeded, when there are complaints like there is right now, the internal mechanism of the party will kick in. And I'm sure we're at that level. I know the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu, to be a party man. I know that Philip Shaibu means well for the Edo State. And I think what is important here is to look at what we are in this country today in terms of life, in terms of insecurity, in terms of almost absence of governance at the federal level, particularly from the APC. What is key to Edo State people today is to find that, yes, we have a governor in Edo State who is reasonably doing very well, and to that extent, the Edo State, or they require from the PDP, is to have a united front to continue to have that dividend of democracy.
But Mr. Ologunagba,
arising from the performance of the...
Pardon me if I may come in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does the party at the national level acknowledge the complaints by the deputy governor and his supporters that they were excluded from the process? They were denied admission into the venue of the primaries. Is the party addressing that?
Well, I can't speak to that specifically about that, but I do know that for every complaint, again, maybe I may just step back and give you the process. After the primary, there was another committee, which is the appeal panel for the primary consideration if there are complaints. Petitions were sent in, and the petition was substantially in complaint about how the delegates emerged. There was no complaint about or against the primary election process. What was said to me now seems it's not before us. I'm not conscious of that. I didn't see that report of denial of people into the access. In any event, people were accredited. Those are delegates. I understand they were accredited, which is in line with the process, and they were led into the venue. Those whose name have been published as emerged from the primary process in terms of the congresses that produced the 3 adult delegates.
But the delegate system
is... the report as to people being prevented from coming to the venue, I don't have that, and I can't substantiate that right now. Because we didn't have that at the National Working Committee level, and I think we may need to look into that again if that is true at all.
But how the delegates emerge in the primary is just as critical as the process itself. And if you're saying that you are not aware of the report about denial of admission into the venue, isn't the party running the risk of being seen as partial to the governor?
Deputy Governor.
Well, I mean, again, that would be your own. That would be your own assumption. But I have just laid out the processes for the party. Look, we started from the 3 adult delegate election. We published the venue for them. There are no venues. All the venues are public places as accredited by INEC. In fact, we got those information from INEC, and it was rightly published. In the primary process, in terms of getting adult delegates, what you do is to talk to party members, and delegates would contest, and they would emerge as having been successful to be delegates for that election. And that's what we did. And those that were successful and confirmed by their peer panel set up for that process as having been done in accordance substantially with the guidelines and rules and the law, they were published. And the venue of the primary election was made public, the location, the time, and the processes were all open. The good thing was that all these processes were live telecast, and the records are there. The exit and the entry point, it was live. There was nothing partial about that. And in any event, there's no reason for us to be partial with the governor. The processes have been opened in line with our guidelines. It has been followed methodically and carefully in line with that. And I challenge anyone to say that all I have said was not consistent with what is in line with our own processes.
All right, Mr. Ologunagba, let's move away from the Edo politics. So let's look at the national issues. There's a lot going on at the national level. Sometimes it's quite difficult to which one to talk about because the pain points are all over the place. But the PDP candidate, the Labour Party candidate, as well as the incumbent president had all agreed that one thing that had to go was subsidy removal. And then the Naira has been floated, and we're seeing all that is going on within the dynamics of the economy. So I want to find out from you, let's talk solutions now. What is the government missing in their whole calculation that you think that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar would have done differently to manage the situation?
Thank you. This is a very, very critical question, and I think this is actually the number one point for every Nigerian, because Nigerians are dying, people are hungry, people can come to work, and life is gradually and surely, except there's a stop, grinding to a halt. Look, the policy thrust of the APC has been ill-advised, ill-timed, and ill-thought out. And we have said this at several fora. Now, governance is here. I think every Nigerian wants this government to succeed. Why? Because it is in the success of the government that we can pursue our own happiness. But this is a government that is impervious to any other suggestion. We take the example of the petroleum industry. We all agreed, and a substantial number of Nigerians agree that subsidy must go. But the question is how? First of all, any government should recognize that the primary purpose of government is the welfare and security of the people. The moment any government fails in those basic things, then of course that government has failed. And the APC at the national level has failed on these two fronts. There's so much insecurity in the country. Lives and properties are not safe. And of course, related to that is that, of course, the welfare of the people have been affected. And the reason is this. When you take a decision on such as removal of subsidy that has a cascading effect all over the country, what you need to do is to have a process, and specifically on the issue of solution. The PDP would have done something differently, which is, we have 4 refineries today, none of them working. And we understand they have a combined capacity of 400 barrels per day, 400,000 barrels per day. What we would have done differently would be that rather than wake up one morning without any plan, without considering what the effect will be, and say, oh, we remove with a fiat the subsidy. What we would have done is to assess the 4 refineries and find which of them is the least in trouble. And then we can give ourselves a 9-month window to ensure that that comes upstream. What does that mean? What do we practice now? Is to take the 400,000 barrels outside the country to refine. Embedded in that is to have the cost of freight, the insurance, the transportation, logistics, and then refining. And when you finish the refining, you bring the same product back. What then happens? You pay the same cost. In addition to that, you have storage at the tank farms in Nigeria. All these costs and all these levels embedded therein like corruption. So what you have done is to take the product out, refine, improve the economy of another country, bring it back at double the cost to us, and then it is passed on to us in the name of subsidy. What we would have done would be to, let's say, for purposes of analysis, we take the 100,000 barrel capacity, and you fix it in the first 9 months. What it means is that the 100,000 barrels per day will be refined locally by one of the refineries.
Right.
What followed thereafter is that there are byproducts that are in hundreds of byproducts from refining. It means those companies that need those byproducts as their raw materials will no longer import. What it means, there will be less pressure on foreign exchange for those companies. And of course, there will be employment by those companies and their employees.
Right.
What does it mean? It means they will be engaged, they'll be paying taxes, there will be inflation in the economy, but they didn't do that. And they're not listening to that. And until they listen and ensure that, yes, there are superior knowledge and information that will help the country, we will go this way. Well, you can see the interrelationship. If we can fix only 100,000 barrels today, it means in the next 2-3 years, we will not be refining the 100,000 barrels outside the country. And the cascading effect in terms of positive aspect, in terms of those raw materials and those companies that will be employing other Nigerians will be there. So they look at that.
All right.
On the issue of security, they are not listening to even to the experts. We know that the root cause of the biggest challenge for us in this country was insecurity. That is why we don't have food production, because farmers can't go to their farms. You recall, APC, sometimes under Buhari, said, when 43 farmers were killed in Maiduguri, and I think Borno, somewhere there, they said they didn't take permission. And you ask yourself, where is the government when farmers will need to take permission to go to their farms? In any event, they have always lied to us. They said to us then that there was the challenge of, Anko Borrower scheme. There's so much food production. And they came to Abuja, created a wooden structure, put in bags of rice on there, and then declared it as pyramid of rice, which turned out to be pyramid of lies. So until they go into the basic, fix the security so that farmers can go to the farms, because indeed, if there was abundance of production as arising from the very fraudulent program of Anko borrowing, which of course is revealing right now, where the CBN sadly became a commercial bank, a retail bank, as against being a banker's bank. This is the problem that the APC has put on in the last 9 years. This government has a duty to begin to look at that, ask for help, and ensure that we can solve these twin problems of security, food production, and of course the welfare of the people.
You know, the beauty of this is, I mean, the opposition should always do its role, give alternative ideas. By the way, we reached out to the APC as well to have a robust conversation, to get responses to some of the points you have made. Perhaps that will happen in the coming days, but as of now, nothing. But let's speak to the current situation we're in right now and how to get out of it. Because you've talked about what could have happened, and I imagine a lot of people will have, things to pick with it. The refineries will indeed have been ready in time, even faster than what this government is doing. What happens to the pre-existing agreements and contracts? You know how litigious these issues can be. But let's speak to how to trickle this down from federal to sub-nationals, because the PDP controls substantial amount of state itself. And I remember that the APC had said when the PDP governor spoke about state police, and the response of the APC was, how about the state governors account for the monies they're getting from FAC, which have since increased from what it used to be. So let's speak to what the sub-nationals will do, because the PDP has power, at least in that area, and of course the National Assembly as well, even though it's not majority. And I'd like you to speak to, maybe you can talk about specific state governments and what they're doing in these times to turn the tide of this economic hardship, because whether you like it or not, the state governors also have a major role to play in this. Mr. Ologunagba.
Absolutely, and I agree perfectly with that. Every sub-national organ of government in Nigeria have responsibility, and they should be highly accountable. But again, we need to compare like for like. And it's important that we have this conversation so that Nigerians can begin to find out which party indeed have the interests of the people at heart. And let's compare like for like. Go to each of the 10 states of the PDP in Nigeria today. You can ably describe them as oases of development. And I'll start from Oyo State. You've been hearing the last 1 year about commissioning of projects or starting off of projects that are of value to the people. In Oyo State, only about a week and a half ago, there was a commissioning of a 12.9 kilometer dual carriageway from a major part of axis into Oyo State in the capital. What does that tell you? When you have construction of such a magnitude, there are cascading benefits to other sectors. Where you have road development follow. So that's an example of the PDP state that is taking action to have money back into the system, to reflect the economy through construction, because the massive construction work will mean more people will be going to be working, more supply chain will be available, people will be providing food for those that are working there, and money will change, and that's how to grow an economy. You don't do hands-on or palliative. Those are temporary. What you need to do is to do construction or other jobs that could have an effect in the productive capacity of individuals in the country. To go to Akwa Ibom State, they have a project called Arise Agenda that covers agriculture, security, education, and they are side of development. You go to Osun State, it's a massive construction site where so many things are going on at the same time. So you can justify those monies, that extra money they're getting. And in the interest of people, in Oyo State, for instance, they have given grants to cushion the effect while negotiation for minimum wage or increment is going on. Ditto for every other PDP state. I challenge any of the APC government to come forward and say, yes, in the last 9 months or so, we have either started a project that could help improve life, or we're commissioning project. You go to Edo State, which is the key here. The project and the performance of the governor is there. Particularly, for instance, they just unveiled their security architecture in terms of deploying technology to be able to help to identify security challenges in the state. And that is what I think the federal government can borrow from. If you go to Bauchi State, Bauchi have decided to develop special kind of project that allows the government to be able to reach out to the people in the local government in terms of helping them in times of this hunger. So these are all over the government. I need to challenge the APC to say, look, name one state that will be able to do that.
We may need to look closely at those PDP states to see how, that commitment to infrastructure development is also translating into positive indices in human capital development as well for the people. I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit of more politics before we wrap up this segment. Mr. Ologunagba, what is the status of former governor of Rivers State and Minister Nyesom Wike within the PDP? Is he still a member of the People's Democratic Party, vis-a-vis in what is generally perceived to be his role in the ongoing political crisis in Rivers State?
Well, I like the word you use, perceived. I like the word perceived. That would be your own characterization. However, membership of a political party is personal, and it's at the ward level, from unit level to ward level of the persons involved. Governor Nyesom Wike has not resigned from the PDP, to my knowledge. And therefore, if it is personal, he remains a member of the PDP. But again, you see, what we need to talk about is to talk about the people. And then not begin to situate a party within the context of an individual. Governor Wike has been a great member of this party. We had challenges before the general elections, which, of course, in politics is expected. But that is not to begin to imagine that he's not a member of the party. He is a member of the party because he has not resigned. To my own knowledge, from the records I have, he is still a member of the party. But what is more important is the capacity of the PDP to reconcile itself. And like I said to you, I don't come on TV to tell you this is what we're doing to do that. We know we have the capacity as a party to reconcile and bring everyone that have been aggrieved one way or the other within the fold. Not just because of the individual, it's because of this country. We need a party like PDP to help stabilize Nigeria. The APC has lost it. They have no vision. They have no direction. They have no policy. They have no program. They're doing what I call hop, step, and jump. It's like a rapid resort college. And you see them taking action that you begin to ask yourself, who are these people? Do they think through this? So that's the challenge that we have as a country.
Mr. Ologunagba, we're totally out of time. If you can answer in 30 seconds, what Bukola is actually asking. People are perceiving or suspecting that the PDP is afraid of former Governor Nyesom Wike. Is your party scared of Wike? It's a straight question.
The answer in one word, no. Nobody is afraid of Governor Wike. We have no reason to be afraid of Governor Wike. We believe that we as a party must come together. And I think we need to please take this issue away from Governor Wike. We should talk about the party and the people of Nigeria. Because I like the word you keep constantly using, say perceived. That perception is yours, not us. We recognize that we have challenges in the past. We can fix it. We are capable of fixing it. It has happened in the past in the party. We have capacity in this party to resolve our differences. And I would appeal to the press. Let's focus on the issue of governance, because what is important to Nigeria today is not whether Wike is a member of PDP or not. It is that they can travel, that they can eat, and that they can survive. They can send their children to school, and that we have a government who will listen to them when they're in trouble. We have a government that will not be absent. That is what should be important, and I think that should be the message the press should be sending to Nigerian people. All right,
Mr. Ologunagba, we're definitely going to be bringing you back. Just avail yourself, or just come around when we call you so that we can ask you loads of questions, because we started with looking for solution. We haven't found that solution. So when people like you come out, we hope that the opposition will give us their own counter solution. Maybe the incumbent government will be able to take a leave. We all need to get out of this quagmire we're in. We must thank you, Ologunagba, the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very, very much. Listen again to me. There were solutions that were profiled there, which is the position of our party. We need this country to move forward. We need APC to listen to us. We need them to lead very well and to ensure that, yes, together we can put this country together. Not this insensitivity and the arrogance and failure that they've been
all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ologunagba. Well, guys, a lot of conversation we need to have with this guy, because right now everybody is trying to look for solution, and that's what we are focused on. We need to, like I said, we need to survive first, and then we can go battle with ourselves later. Well, we'll now switch gears to another issue, but we're going to take this quick break. When we come back, that very conversation around landlord and tenant, I'm sure you would like to be part of it. Join us again.
So let's have that conversation, the all-important conversation. If you're not a landlord, you're a tenant, or you're just in the middle, land tenant. I don't think there's anything like that yet, pardon me. So let's talk about this. We know that housing is a major part of our everyday life. You either stay in a house, you work in a house, or you have to interface with the building from time to time. After you spend 60% of your income on food, the other, you have to break it down, transport, accommodation, and the rest. And this morning, we're diving into that conversation. So you maybe call your landlord or call your tenant to tune in right now for this one. We're joined on the show to walk through some of these issues that have come up with a view to finding resolutions and ways forward for this one by Barakat Odunuga-Bakare. She's special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on housing. She's also overseeing that agency in charge of real estate. Good morning, welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, Gade.
I like the way you're calm. I think we need calm mediators for issues between landlords and tenants. But speak to us. Lagos is a huge city. And for those who are maybe house hunting, those who have gotten a house already, or those who are trying to move, they know some of the headaches they've had to endure during that process. This is not to say we don't have, wonderful people as tenants and landlords. I mean, we can go on and on about that. But I think majority have issues around this. So talk to us about, first, what you've had to handle as a special advisor and the person in charge of that agency in terms of landlord and tenant issues. Then we'll break it down to those nitty-gritties and how to resolve them.
Thank you very much, Kade. So what the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, LASG, does is that it sensitizes and tries to regularize real estate practices in Lagos State. It was first a department from 2007 until it was promulgated into law, and it upgraded to a full-fledged agency in 2022. So basically, the agency beforehand used to just register real estate transactions in Lagos State. So let's say you buy land, you have to register it. You rent a property, you have to register it so far as it's below the time limit of 5 years.
Right.
So the agency can get involved and be a mediator between yourself and the landlord, or also between potential tenants and also developers as well. And since with this administration has assumed office last year, we've been able to resolve well over 1,027 cases. We have about 8 cases at the court at the moment, and the most recent one was a case of one Mr. Kayode that was all over social media. And
why are you doing that? I'm Kayode as well. It's not me, obviously.
Obviously not you.
But I get the point.
Yes.
I just want to put it out
there.
there.
Yes. So the man came. He was online everywhere. Some developer took monies from him, and he wasn't allocated his land, and the issue was flying for like about 3 years. And as soon as Mr. Governor picked it up on social media, he sent it to myself and the Honorable Commissioner for Housing as well too. And there we mediated between both parties, and I can tell you for sure that within 48 hours the issue was resolved.
Right.
And now the man has he's been allocated his land, and he sent an appreciation to Mr. Governor.
Is this
and also,
is this the person that was staying outside of the country?
Yes,
the one that
he was in Canada,
right,
saying he was going to commit suicide if he doesn't get help, and so we can't afford to lose a Lagosian. And every life matters.
That was a major one.
Yes.
So it's not just landlord tenants. You deal with developer and
we deal with developer. We deal with anything land transactions.
Oh, fantastic!
Whatsoever at all.
So let's speak to first the landlord and tenant issues. Myriads of issues always come up. If it's not the skyrocketing rent, which I think is at the heart of this conversation. Perhaps you can speak to that skyrocketing rent. You just see rent being increased from time to time. I mean, there are great landlords who are understanding, but there are others who say, well, this is what I feed with anyway, so I just increase it to meet my own needs. There's also issues of agreement. Who is meant to do this? Who is meant to do that? And all of it. So what is maybe the most recurring issue for you between landlord and tenant, and what is the resolution that you've been able to come up with?
Well, the most recurring issues that we've had, that I would say, is this issue of skyrocketing rents, agents charging ridiculous amounts of money. And why they're able to do that is we have a tenancy law of 2011. The law captures who can do what and who cannot do what. But it was ambiguous and vague in regards to how much a landlord can charge a tenant, and also how much an agent can charge as well too during transactions. And the law is under review at the moment. So the section 37 of that law states that reasonable amount could be anything.
Really?
At that point when the law was being made, nobody envisioned that landlords were going to start inconveniencing tenants, or agents were going to come up with ridiculous amounts of money. Let's say you pay a rent of about 3 million naira. An agent can wake up tomorrow and say, I'm charging you 300,000 or 1 million naira for agency fees. Meanwhile, it should be stated boldly in black and white that this is how much you can charge.
What's the goal?
Yes.
What should be the charge?
The charge should not be more than, I don't know, maybe like 2-3% or so, thereabouts. Yes.
Wow. I've never paid anything less than 20.
2-3% of
the rent.
Total sum.
Yes, so we're trying to work on how we can put a specific amount on there so that we don't, the law is supposed to protect the tenants and also protect the landlords as well too. So why inconvenience one at the detriment of the other? It doesn't make any sense. So the law is at the House of Assembly at the moment. We're trying to review it and make sure that everything is spelled out in black and white. Whoever breaks the law, you have to face the wrath of the law.
Wow, well, that's a positive one, because I think I paid 10%, I paid 20%. This 3%, Bukola, over to you.
You will go and do testimony and Thanksgiving for that.
It's just my own thoughts.
Okay.
It should not be more than that. We see how they charge rents abroad and the rest of them. So there's a specific amount that you can charge. You can't charge more than that. Well, even if the rent is $1 billion or £1 billion, you cannot charge more than a certain amount of money. Why can it not apply here as well too? If it's
as commission, by the way.
Yes, as commission. Yes.
Okay. So what about damages that they insist on collecting before you take possession of
caution fee?
Yeah, and then there's also that what's the name of that charge again? There's also another charge that the agent collects.
Illegal?
That's his own. Are those charges legal under the tenancy law?
They are legal, but the problem is still that it doesn't have a stated amount.
Okay.
Those charges are legal because for every landlord that is letting his outhouse to a tenant, you should be able to charge damage fee. They do that everywhere in the world. So, but the outrageous thing that we Nigerians or Lagosians do is that we just wake up and say, this is how much we want to charge. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. So the new tenancy laws that will be reviewed would state that this is how much you can charge for damages, this is how much you can charge for agreements, for this is how much you can charge for agents. It will state specifically how much you can charge for everything.
But even after paying that, tenants find that along the line when they take possession and they live in that house for 2-3 years, they're still paying, they're still the one bearing the responsibility for repair work in the house, and then the landlord jettisons that responsibility and doesn't do anything, but just shares it out to tenants. Is it right also under the law?
Well, it's not. It's not. The landlord, so far as you're paying your rent and you're paying your dues as at when due, the landlord should be able to take care of damages in the house because it's still his property by law. So you don't have sole right to the property just because you're renting it out. It is still the property of the landlord. So it should, if he charges you damage fees before you move into the property, you should be able to maintain the house for it to be habitable for you to live in.
So let's put a few facts on the fact sheet here. The fees are the rent.
Yes.
I want to state them so that in case I'm missing anything. The rent, the agency fee, the legal fee,
yes,
the caution or damages. That's all right?
Yes, basically, yes.
Okay, because these are the places where the issues are. Let's now move. I want you to put that at the back of your mind. We may come back to it because we're telling people CTV morning brief is how you can. I think a lot of people want to talk, both landlords and tenants. So hashtag CTV morning brief on X. Send it to us on WhatsApp. We'll be asking those questions to the special advisor to the governor on housing. Now, let's talk about responsibilities. You're a lawyer, so this works for you. Whose responsibility is what? Let's give a classic example. When the borehole gets bad, who fixes it?
The borehole. If you met the borehole in the house before you moved to the house, it's a responsibility of the landlord to fix the borehole.
What of the boreholes that always get bad? Because I've seen this kind of situation.
Well, it's the landlord's responsibility to fix that, but it doesn't stop the tenant from doing so if he wants to.
I have a quick follow-up to that. What if the borehole was constructed after you got to the house? Who bears responsibility for the maintenance?
Constructed
by who?
By who?
The tenant or the landlord?
The landlord,
supposedly
yes.
It would be the landlord.
It's the landlord's responsibility to maintain it.
So let's aggregate it now. If a tenant finds that they have been cheated along the line, either as they took possession or even afterwards, perhaps they are being made to bear responsibility for the cost of damages in the house, can they report to the authority, and what are the guarantees? Because these things can be overwhelming. What are the guarantees that the authority will help them get redress?
Okay, thank you. That's a very fantastic way, because I was going to speak to it as well too. So in situations like that, they write a petition and send it to the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, and then there's a department at the Ministry of Justice. It's called the Citizen Mediation Center. It's a department. So we forward such cases to that department for them to take charge of it, and then they call both the landlord and the tenant as well too, for them to mediate between them. So it's either they go to the multi-door courthouse or they use ADR, and whatever resolutions they result to there is what is binding on both the landlord and the tenant. For example, if one party does not agree to what the resolution is, then they have a right to go to the High Court. But bear in mind that the ADR and the multi-court door system as well too is under the court systems. So if any resolution is reached there and they don't agree, the judgment at the High Court will be the same thing that was entered at the multi-door courthouse or the ADR. So it's still the same judgment, but it will just have more gravity because it will be a High Court judgment now. So they have a right to send in their petitions to my office, and then we send it to the Citizens Mediation Center at the Ministry of Justice.
I want to go back to the question I asked. I only posited one. So maybe you can walk us through, because the issue about whose responsibility is what is always a big issue. And it always happens when it's time to bring out money. And then the argument begins. So maybe an overview. Someone moves into a house, start living in the house. I don't want to know the kind of house. It could be a duplex, it could be a flat or anything. What are the responsibilities of the landlord and what are the responsibilities of the tenant? Just a basic education.
Basic education would be, what are the terms of agreement before you sign tenancy agreement? If the terms of agreement before you sign, that's why it's good to read your tenancy agreements properly before you sign it. Normally, you're supposed to read everything properly, any type of document before you sign. If in the document it states that this is what the landlord is doing and this is what the tenant is doing, and you don't have any problem with it before signing it, then it should not be a problem afterwards. But if it was not part of this agreement that you signed initially before you moved into the property or you became the tenant, then it would be a problem. So different strokes for different folks. In House A, it might be that the landlord will be in charge of maintaining this, maintaining that, and then the tenant's responsibility is just for him to just make sure that the house is tidy. And for House B, it might be that the tenant takes charge of everything. Even if there's a light bulb that goes off, the tenant has to fix it. Then it depends on what your tenancy agreement states. So I think that's the basic answer.
So the tenancy agreement derives its legality from the law.
Yes.
Obviously, and you cannot write anything outside of the law thinking it's my own agreement in any case. So let's talk about
Tenancy Laws 2011.
Exactly, and that's what you're seeking to amend.
Yes.
And I imagine it'll be ready this year.
We're working on it.
Okay, so this is to the State Assembly?
Yes.
We're hoping that this is sped up, because some people's rents are about to expire, so just in time for that. But talk to us about this rent issue. I know we've talked about this a lot, charging beyond 1 year, even though the law is said to be against that. And I heard the governor again speaking to that in that conversation last week, that the law is against that. But still we see people flouting that rule. And they'll tell you expressly, it's my property anyway. And for the tenants, they're thinking, is it worth it? Then I'll go to the government to report. And that's another point entirely. If it really makes sense for tenants to come report, would they get redress or they'll be kicked out of the house eventually and all of that? But about this matter, some say it appears on the mainland, or sorry, it applies on the mainland, but not on the island. Looks like another law entirely is what's applicable on the island. So speak to us about that as well. Is the law only for mainland people, and for if you're in VI, please don't bring that law here?
The 1 year tenancy rent applies everywhere in Lagos State. Everywhere.
So that means mainland and island.
Mainland, island.
Whether Victoria Island.
Victoria Island, Ikoyi, Lekki, Aja, everywhere.
But it appears that some people are above the law.
Well, nobody's above the law. The fact is that most people don't know that there is a place you can complain to when issues like that arises. And I'm happy that Mr. Governor spoke about it, because he has the interest of people at heart and he wants everyone to be protected, most especially the tenants in Lagos State. So when you have issues of your landlord requesting for more than 1 year rent and you're not comfortable with it, you can write to the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, and then we send your petitions to the Citizens Mediation Center. And then I can tell you for a fact that you would get the appropriate help that you need.
Sorry. Walk through this with me. So you've not gotten the house or the apartment or the building yet. It's just a start. So you approach the landlord, you're ready to pay, and you hear you have to pay at least 2-3 years. So there's no agreement
here. This is what the problem is. Most people, we Lagosians, sometimes we like flouting the law. And when one person tries to rent a property to you and then he's telling you, I want to collect 3 years rent or 2 years rent, and you say no, you will see a next man go and say, I can pay you 5 years rent. So it's not about you specifically, it's about everybody cooperating and trying to make sure that the law takes its full course. So if we all agree and we know that the law says that 1 year rent is what you can collect in Lagos State, if you can afford to pay 2 years and you're comfortable with it, then okay. But not you saying, okay, you want to pay 1 year rent and then no, you have to pay 2 years before you move into my house. If you don't want to do that, go to a next person and say, okay, I want your own property. 1 year rent is what I can afford, which is what the law says anyway.
So the point is, whichever way, you won't get that property, because if you report,
then you can report that property to us, and then we investigate and see why they're asking for 2 years rent.
So can you compel the landlord to give the person the property for 1 year?
We can mediate.
But what about the bureaucracy involved in ensuring that the complainant gets redress? Because the challenges of the individual are not waiting, but the bureaucracy involved takes a lot of time. And the individual would say that, look, I'd rather just move on with my life and go to a place where I can get a property that I can afford to pay for. And then, justice is not served. That's the big concern. So is there another way that the authority can ensure there's a central pool for landlords such that regulation can be more effective?
What I would say is that the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, as much as we regulate and try to sanitize or sensitize the real estate sector, we also register realtors, developers, whatnot. So we're in charge of making sure that everybody practicing real estate in Lagos State is registered and licensed to practice real estate in Lagos State. So tenants, landlords, potential landlords that are willing to rent out their properties will obviously use agents. These agents will be registered with the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority. So if they're registered with us and then you have issues like that, so it's easy for us to pinpoint who is doing what and where. So we can call that agent or call that homeowner and say, oh, this is what this person is saying, or what are you going to do about it? If not, you're going to get sent to the Ministry of Justice. And I can tell you that if a petition comes to my own office, I attend to all the files between 48 hours. No file stays on my table more than 48 hours.
Okay, that even brings me to the next question, because Lagos is almost 20 million people. If all of us come with your complaint, they will need 10 commissioners in that space alone. Yeah. So I'm saying that because don't you think it's time to decentralize so there can be more efficiency? Because if everything has to come to your office first, where is this office? Is there an email? Is there a phone number? What exactly? So that everybody watching and listening, because some people are already talking on X. Landlords are complaining, tenants are complaining. I'm going to ask those questions, but first, where is the office? Or if there's, in addition to the office, phone number, other details, maybe, I don't know.
The Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority is located at Block 21, the first floor in Alausa. And we have a website as well, and also have a registration portal for agents, landlords, developers, brokers, whatnot, that practice real estate, that want to have license to practice. So the website is lasrera@lagosstate.gov.ng.
Lasrera
is
spelled
LASERERA. Lasrera at lagosstate.gov.ng. And also we have our registration portal. It's lasrera. So the at comes off. So it's lasrera.lagosstate.gov.ng for them to register.
Okay, just before I throw in the question from the people who are talking, does your agency cover complaints around tribalism and gender issues. A young girl wants to rent a house and we don't rent to young girls. Or, oh, you're Moibo, or you're Yoruba. You know, all of this, I'm sure you get those kind of complaints.
Yes,
do you cover that aspect as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, so let me see.
I just want to take this comment, by the way.
No, just 1 minute though. I saw something, but it's just a comment. Sorry, Kyle. It said, Sam Wasborn says, my tenant ran away with 2 years rent.
That's the comment.
Is that a comment?
Yeah, that is.
Something else. I just want you to. So it doesn't look like only tenants are talking. Landlords are also complaining. Kyle, you can go ahead.
Yeah, he said my tenant ran away with my 2 years rent. Says some tenants are very wicked. But let's, and some are really nice too, I should say. But let's go through the questions. You see this Alex Jambak, a realtor actually, saying, what is Lagos State doing about monthly rent as against yearly as obtainable in advanced countries? And is asking, can I get a copy of a Lagos State tenancy law to adapt in proposal for my state? Brilliant. Actually send us a message from Jos, Plateau State rather, Jos the capital. Monthly and then the law.
So the monthly rental scheme is in the works as well too. It almost came into effect last administration, but because the administration was packing up. So, but
the same administration.
Yes. So we're starting again, and hopefully before the end of the year we should have something in regards to the monthly rental, because they charge monthly everywhere else in the world, and it only eases and takes stress off the tenants, potential tenants as well too. So they work with what they're earning, and then when it comes into effect, it will be a certain percentage of what your salary is. So you can't be earning, let's say, 50,000 and then want to rent a property of like 2 million.
Cannot do pass.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way, you know. And
then copy of the law.
There's a law.
Yes. I can finish.
Kyle, there's another one here, which is, I'm sure this, under the law, how often can landlords increase rent and at what percentage? There are landlords that want to increase every year, every 2 years. So particularly a landlord that does not bother once rent is collected as and when due, never fixes anything, just rent increase and collection. That from Surulere.
Well, that's what I was saying about the tenancy law being vague in some aspects. The law was supposed to state that this is when you can increase your rent, or this is when you can actually add more money to anything you want to collect from the tenant. So the new tenancy laws will capture all these things.
You need to hurry with these tenancy laws.
And is it going to pretty soon? Because people are on my neck as well. I get calls as at 3 a.m. in the morning sometimes. My landlord said he wants to increase the tenancy money to about 5 million. I'm like, when did you pay your rents? I paid like 5 months ago. But the guy just came today and just told me I have to increase my rent at the end of the year. Where do I get that from? And, you know, I really wish I could help and just jump in, but, you know, every agency or every parastatal has to be guided by a certain law. And if the law doesn't permit me to do, even being a lawyer, so I need to be more careful. So if there's no law that states that this is what should be done, there's actually a limit to what. So
maybe you have to look at the camera and appeal to landlords to have conscience.
Please, I would like to plead.
What camera can she look at?
Which camera can I look at?
Let's look at this camera.
And as you do that, please also talk
camera.
about the arbitrary charges for houses built in 1980. And they're not en suite, they look very old.
We're totally out of time.
So I would like to plead with all landlords in Lagos State on behalf of Mr. Governor. He wants peace in Lagos and he wants everybody protected. Please, I am pleading. Quit increasing rents every 10 months or every 5 months at your own excitement. People need to be protected. We understand how the economy of the country is at the moment. Please, let's be kind to each other.
What's the message to tenants? Because tenants are running away with money.
Pay your landlord's rents, please. You had an agreement before you moved into the property. Please pay rents as at when due. Thank you.
I should just add that they're wonderful landlords, by the way. So maybe just to commend the wonderful landlords who are doing great, and the wonderful tenants as well. Thank you for being a shining light. But there are a lot of comments.
And there are people who want to become landlords.
No.
There's a question
we're
here.
We're totally out of time, Bukola.
Okay.
We're totally out of time. We're totally out of time.
Okay,
people want to know the procedure about owning a home in Lagos. But maybe you talk to that after the program for those of us here.
Again, your handle and phone number.
Okay.
Because someone said it doesn't go through, so just repeat that as well.
Okay, the handle is Lasrera lagostate.gov.ng.
Okay.
And
not your personal phone number.
No.
Of course.
I'll furnish you with the phone number.
Okay.
So you have like 3 phone numbers.
So can put it up. Okay.
Because someone was saying
Yes.
the numbers
Yes,
aren't
please.
going.
We'll
through.
send it to them.
We'll get that sorted
on
for you. But we have to thank you so much.
so
We
much.
can never exhaust this landlord-tenant conversation. So thank you
No
for
problem.
helping us at least scratch the surface. And we hope to have you subsequently
Whenever
to talk
you
about
need
the
me,
law and some
I'm
other
here.
developments. Barakat Ologunagba, Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on housing. And of course, she's also in charge of that agency, which is in charge of real estate, LASG. That's the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
There you go. We'll go to break now. And when we return, I will talk about some movie, epic movie actually. You love to see the movie, you love to see the characters, and we're bringing one of them to you. Anikulapo. Yeah, that's the next conversation on the morning break. Stay with us. Have on the show this morning, son of a legendary Herbert Ogunde. You see the face and you know that what we're saying is true. We're joined by Mr. Wubo Ogunde, who played Basharu in the movie Anikulapo Rise of Spectre. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning.
I feel like I'm in the presence of, you know, Nollywood theater history right now, and there needs to be some sort of comportment. But how do you feel every time when people see you, and you say you don't see the resemblance, but I can see it, particularly for those who knew him, who fell in love with his work, big fans, and before social media, by the way. So those were real fans who had to travel, who had to find ways to watch the black and white television set. But how do you feel to carry, I don't know if you feel like you carry a weight on your shoulders, but how does it feel to have come from that lineage of creativity and greatness?
I think it's fantastic. First of all, let me thank you for having me this morning. It is fantastic. I think how I feel, it's something that's very difficult to explain, because I've always been his son. Yeah. I lived with him, I grew up with him, so it's just always been, that's just my life. It's always been my life, so
interesting.
Nothing is different.
I saw a picture of you, I think it was from the 80s. You put up a picture on social media.
That is correct.
First of all, you've not changed much, so I was a bit confused.
Thank you.
If it's a picture taken in 2020 or 1980s. You're the last son.
I am the last son, yes.
And you were born in this, and you've had to travel around, performing, theaters and the rest. So would you say this was basically just inborn, or something you had to develop yourself, focus on it, and hone your skill?
See, I was born in England.
That's a picture, yeah?
Yeah, that's my pictures in the late 80s.
Exactly.
I was born in England in the late 60s when my father traveled to Edinburgh Festival to perform for the first time with his large ensemble. And from that point onwards, I grew up, I live theater. I'm woken up every day by the sound of drums, and the entire family, we all participate in acting. And my first stage play was in Aroquintania, playing Oriadekingwe at Glover Hall. And I left school at a very young age to work for my father. So that's my first introduction to acting, working with people like Kunle Afolayan's dad, Adi Love, Aisho Pepe, Edaoni Leola. Those are the people that I grew up with. Ogabelu, Aluwe. So those are the people I grew up with. His last film, I was on the location. You will certainly see some of those pictures come through, Ayomo, which was shot in Ososa in 1986. And in 1990, he passed. We did a stage play, so I actually acted as a young Adediji in the stage play at National Theatre. And then after that, I traveled and moved away from acting, because when he passed, it was almost like a chapter has closed. I kind of fell out of love with acting and show business. And then quite recently, I have been feeling the fact that it's almost like you're walking away, or you've walked away from your destiny, from what you're called to do. But one way or the other, I met Kunle less than a year ago.
No way.
We met actually in London, March 16. In fact, I remember 4 p.m. because the appointment was 4 p.m. at Oxford Circus. And we met and we went out for a drink. And it was during that jolly that he sounded the idea that, do you know that I have something coming up? And I think you're going to be wonderful. And you cannot reject it, because I heard the voice of your father telling me that you have to be in this movie. Really?
That's how he got
I thought, really?
Couldn't say no to that one.
He actually said, you cannot say no to this. So I thought it was a joke. 3 days later, I got the script. I read it. And I felt straight away that it was magical, because you could definitely see the various characters, their voice. When you read many scripts, you can tell there are times that the script feels like all the characters speaks in a monotone, and they all sound almost the same, but these are very unique characters. And the one that he wanted me to play, which is Basharon, is the villain of this movie. We saw it last night at the premiere. It's exciting, mind-blowing.
So just like your history has shown, do you have strong bias for language movie, indigenous movies, epic movies? Is that where your strong bias is?
No. First, I mean, for the last 32 years I've lived in England, so I'm comfortable with English language, as you can tell. But I'm also comfortable with Yoruba language, because I grew up here in Lagos at Alagumeji. I went to Bobi College. And then later on, when I started working for my father, I moved to Ijebu. So I speak a little bit of Ijebu as well. So I'm comfortable with both Yoruba language as well as English language, of course. Do I have a bias? This is history. This is who we are.
Yeah.
This is how I was brought up. I was brought up in rich, traditional Yoruba culture. So definitely I will have something. There's something about that.
That's precisely what I was asking, because some people, because of the depth of heritage and the ability to be able to tell that story better than English language, which we all speak English, but there's something about language and depth that comes with certain level of heritage and originality that makes them a lot more comfortable. That's the premise of my question, actually.
I get your point, and I think when you watch different films or you watch a number of actors, you can tell when they move from their native language to English language. You notice that something has sort of been lost in translation between those two. But I think that's probably down to training. It's down to character development, the ability to kind of understand and also understand language, what to stress and what not to stress, etc. I think that's the reason why you notice that difference. So with training, I don't think you'd notice the difference. No.
Well, we're going to have to thank Mr. Afolayan for bringing you back home.
I'm thanking him too.
Yes. So you said earlier that when your father passed, it was like, you know, a big loss for you that made you abandon, for want of a better word now, the work. So what resonates with you from Anikulapo in relation to the body of work that your dad left behind? And in addition to that, is this also a calling to preserving or returning the Ogunde theatre play that your father established?
I hope so. I think you're certainly aware that from an Ogunde perspective, we have been quiet for a while. We have not produced any film or theatre for a while. I'm hoping that following this movie, that we will, become active in this space. That's my hope. Yeah. I certainly plan to be very active going forward. One of the first things Conley said to me is that his vision is to produce quality and the sort of plays and the performances that our parents used to do. And that resonated with me. That got me that if you wanted to kind of go to that level, because they pushed the boundaries in terms of what was possible. I mean, my father made films in 35mm, and in the 80s, that is the movie. There is nothing else that's better than 35mm from a quality perspective. And he used to go to England to get all of the crews to come to Nigeria to handle all of the technical aspects of the movie. So for that period, that is pushing the boundary. What Kunle is doing for this period is also pushing the boundary in terms of technicalities. Kunle, from my perspective, from what I have seen working with him in this movie, he has a unique ability to understand human emotion and to capture that human emotion through cinematography. It's amazing. I mean, he certainly showed me that I'm capable of something that I didn't even know I was capable of. And you see all of that when this movie.
I actually look forward to seeing how you'll interpret. Because you're soft-spoken, like the quintessential gentleman, speak very good English. So I'm looking forward to seeing
my
Yoruba, your Yoruba, and how you interpret the villain in that. It's not a movie; it's a series actually. It's a sequel of the Anikulapo itself. So. What just hit me as you were speaking? So you talked about your father a lot, Herbert Ogunde. You talked about Aisha Pepe Shola. You talked about Adi Love. You talked about some of these people. And for a lot of young Nigerians, and you'll forgive them for that, they don't know these people. And you'd understand why, because they grew up on social media. And so if it's not maybe Ramsey Noah, even for some people, Ramsey Noah is kind of old generation, because there's now a newer generation in place. So is there something you when you look at Nollywood today, do you think we have come of age well enough? Do you think we have, ripened well enough? Are we losing where we're coming from? All of these people who built the foundation, not just for Yoruba movies, even for Igbo and Kannywood and the rest. Do you think we've come of age well enough? Are we still in touch with where we're coming from?
Well, I think it's clear that when we're not in touch with where we're coming from, and there's a number of reasons for that. One is history, how we document history. I think that is something that we still need to be better at, and also how we teach history. I think a lot of the history, certainly from this era, quite a lot of them have been lost. I was speaking to someone yesterday that talked about theater and only mention Hubert Ogunde. And I wondered, and I asked the person, said, have you heard of Drola Dipo? Have you heard of Ogumola? These are fabulous people. They were my father's contemporary. I mean, I met those people at a very young age. I know that Drola Dipo was there, the First Act 77, and the rest of them. So I think a lot of those things have been lost, and that's the reason. But hopefully with social media, we now have documentation that hopefully will kind of sustain us going into the future.
So there is an upswing, some sort of a progression. Now we're hitting box office. I think I read the other day it's a 1.4 billion naira movie now. Box office was a Tribe Called Judah.
Yes.
So this is you, given the cross culture you've experienced and your rich heritage, general counsel to movie makers as well as the government, as to begin, how can they see strongly beyond talk to know that this can be another big cash cow for the country beyond oil? Maybe there's a perspective you share, because when we talk about California being the 6th largest economy in the world, bigger economy than the entire Africa as at the last count, made up of Silicon Valley and Hollywood, just those two alone are those big numbers. How do we, repurpose ours since we're getting these numbers and sustain it? Let it not look like this is just a rave of the hour.
I think a government has certainly a large role to play when it comes to this. If you look at UK, where I'm based at the moment, we have arts funding that is available to support arts, support theater. There are various ways in which the government can provide infrastructure, and those infrastructure may be something that people can benefit for, either by paying a very low fees, etc. But there's so much that the government can do, even from a tax perspective, reduce tax, having, again, as I said earlier on, it's mainly just funding and support. Whenever an infrastructure like train is required, it's easy to have access to buildings. And also they have a role to play as well in preserving culture, establishing a museum where we can keep some of the things that memorabilia that people can go to see regularly, and also put in school curriculums as well. Because I know that my father, for example, if you study in theater, he's one of the people that you have to study in your first year. I think that has certainly been helpful, and those are the things that we need to do. We've started, but there's quite a lot more that can be done.
Apparently you are high on documentation of history and preservation of, our rich cultural heritage. Speaking of which, do you think that Nollywood is, filling its role in that regard with the retelling of stories like Death and the King's Horseman, which was produced recently, Anikulapo, that you have featured in, and what's the name of the other one about a storyteller that was produced recently? Do you think Nollywood is filling that role, and is it doing it well enough?
I think when you compare Nollywood with its contemporary like Bollywood and Hollywood, Nollywood is still fairly young. Really started not too long ago. So I think Nollywood, we certainly have a long way to go in determining even where we want to go, how we want to kind of work together and preserve this thing that we call Nollywood. There's a lot of work that we need to do to kind of create a future for ourselves and have different groups that can support the development, have a management team that supports the development of the industry, because that's what they do abroad. And that's, we can learn a lot from America, we can learn a lot from India as well in developing this industry for ourselves.
What a conversation we've had. I love the angle the slant it took, trying to connect the past with our future and our present as well. But before we wind down, you need to give us your favorite line from the Anikulapo series. In Yoruba, by the way.
Oh, you made me laugh. My favorite line.
Or you can just simulate something so we can we can see you in
feel that
character for a moment.
In character, wow.
It has to be in Yoruba. Though. It's in Yoruba, I want to hear.
You need makeup, you need all sorts. Okay, well, if you have seen the trailer, then you'll have seen the very end of the trailer. My character comes in to speak to the king, and he goes, "Sieri ajebìnrin, èyí tí ó fi ògùn rẹ̀ dè í mọ́lẹ̀, á mú, á sì pa sójúde ọjà."
Look at that.
What does that mean?
That's seamless.
What does it mean?
There is a witch woman who has used her charm to hold you down. We will catch her and kill her in the middle of the market.
Oh, fantastic.
I can hear the villain voice.
I am trying.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing it already.
Absolutely. We have to thank you so much. Bashir, by the way, is in the Yoruba culture, is a warrior.
Yes, he is the leader of the army. He's a senior chief.
Right.
And it's always in conflict with the king. But in this movie, Bashir is one of the richest people in town.
Wow.
And he just wants to dominate.
Interesting. He's been cornering all the defense contracts. Mr. Awoba Ogunde, we have to thank you so much. Please, Bashir, movie Anikulapo Rise of Respect. Thank you for your time. He's the son of a legendary Hubert Ogunde. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
So there you have it. That's the show for today, everyone. Hey, I'm Kayode Okikelu.
A wonderful way to begin the week. Let's do this again tomorrow and throughout the week. I am Bukola Koka.
And there's a lot more coming by tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozonga. Bye-bye.